I've got a great lineup of spring home decor for you today. We've got everything from a thrifted bird cage to some Dollar Tree items we're going to transform. My video today is sponsored by Cricut. I found this bird cage at my local thrift store for only $3.99. It's nice, but it could be so much better. First thing I needed to do was to address the rust spots. There were some on the bottom and around the bird. So I gave it a good washing, I scrubbed it really well, and then I let it completely dry. The color combination that I'm going to be using today is white and gold, like I've used in so many of my other decor pieces. I love using it because it's neutral. So I'm going to, first of all, paint the bird cage white. So I needed to tape off the top bird and also the latch. I'm using a white Rustoleum spray paint. I sprayed the first coat of paint on the cage. I covered it liberally until it was completely white. I let it dry for 20 minutes, then sprayed on a second coat for a maximum paint saturation, and then I let it dry for 1 hour. I removed the blue painter's tape from the bird and from the latch, taped off the cage with that same blue painter's tape, and I also used a paper towel to make sure that this was completely covered. Then I got some gold metallic brass Rustoleum spray paint, and I sprayed the bird, the handle, and the latch. I let it dry for 20 minutes, then added a second coat of paint. I let that dry for an hour. And finally, I removed the painter's tape from the bird and the latch. The transformation is so dramatic. It is bright, it is fresh, clean, and it looks so much more high-end. Dollar Tree has such a great variety of frames. I saw this white frame with a gold accent around the edges the other day. I snatched up a couple of them. We are going to turn this already great frame into something better. On my Cricut design space, I hit New Project. I went to Image. In the search bar, I typed in Lovebirds. Several options came up and I scrolled down to this one right here. I selected it and I hit Insert Image, which took it to my design space. I unlocked the size and I put in the custom size that would fit into my frame. I only needed the damask print and the birds, so I selected and deleted the excess vinyl cuts. At this point I hit Make It, which sorted it onto my mats. There are 2 mats because there's going to be 2 cuts. I hit Continue. I selected my material, which was vinyl, and then I always hit More on the pressure. I chose the premium vinyl that looks like lace. I put it onto my mat. At this point, I hit the flashing arrow button, which loaded my vinyl into my machine, and then I hit the flashing C button, which began the cutting process. Once it was finished, I hit that flashing arrow button, which released my mat. Now it's time for the second cut. I put a gold vinyl onto my sticky mat. I hit the flashing arrow button, which loaded my mat into the Cricut. Then I hit the flashing C button, which began the cutting process. Once it was 100% done cutting, I hit that flashing arrow button, which released my mat. And now I have both designs. On my computer, I hit Finish. With my scraper tool, I pressed the vinyl firmly together. Then I got my weeding tool and began to pull up the excess vinyl away from my damask design. I repeated the process on my second vinyl piece by using my scraper tool and pressing the vinyl together, and then I got my weeding tool and pulled up the excess vinyl away from the birds. These gold birds right here were originally supposed to be kind of a shadow or an outline for the lace birds that were made out of this vinyl. I decided that I wanted them to stand out and be bold, so I cut away the vinyl birds that were made out of the lace and I replaced it with the gold bird. That way they could stand out. Next, I got my transfer tape and I put it squarely in the middle of my vinyl pieces, got my scraper tool and pressed it firmly together, and then I removed the backing. At this point, I took my frame, flipped it over, and removed the glass from the frame. I placed the vinyl directly in the middle, pressed it firmly, and then I got my scraper tool and scraped it together. And then I took that transfer tape, pulled it away from the vinyl, which left the design on my frame. To customize this piece, I'm going to be using this frosted glass Krylon paint. I purchased this at Lowe's. I turned the glass over so the blank side was facing up. I sprayed a light mist of the frosted paint over the glass. This paint dries lickety-split, so I only had to wait about 5 minutes, and then I added a second coat. If you want more of an opaque look, just do 1 coat. I wanted my paint to be a little denser, so I did 2 coats. Again, you can customize it to your specific liking. Once I was finished spray painting, I let it dry for 30 minutes and then I placed it back into my frame. What a cheap, easy DIY that looks so expensive and high-end. This is a beautiful, customized piece that is a fresh design that's perfect for spring. My video today is part of a collaboration with a very talented group of ladies. The theme today is spring, so we're all doing some spring decor. I will leave a link to the playlist in my description box so you can see what they all created for spring. Another Dollar Tree find is this cloche right here. It has a brown base, which I didn't particularly like. I got out that same metallic brass spray paint and I sprayed a generous amount of the paint on the base to give it an updated look. To customize this a little bit further, I'm going to add a beautiful bird on a branch onto the top portion of the cloche. On my Cricut design space, I hit New Project, I went to Image. In the search bar, I typed in bird on a branch. Several options came up. I scrolled down and then I selected this one right here and I clicked Insert Image. It brought it to my design space. I only wanted the bird, so I got rid of the shadow by deleting it. Then I sized it to the size I wanted. At this point, I went over to Make It and it sorted it onto my mat and I clicked Continue. It brought it to my materials selection. I selected vinyl and on the pressure, I put more. I hit the flashing arrow button, which loaded my mat, and then I hit the flashing C button, which began the cutting process. Once the cutting process was 100% completed, I hit the flashing arrow button, which released my mat, and then I hit Finish on the computer. Using my scraper tool, I pressed the vinyl firmly together, and then I got my weeding tool and I pulled the excess vinyl away from the bird. Next, I pulled away all of the excess pieces that were in between the branches and the leaves. The weeding tool is really great for this part. I took my transfer tape and I placed it over the top of my vinyl bird. Then I got my scraper tool and I pressed the transfer tape and the vinyl together, and then I easily removed the backing from the transfer tape. I placed my vinyl bird in the center of my cloche, and then I got my scraper tool and I pressed it firmly to the center of the cloche, and then I removed the transfer tape. I filled the inside of the cloche with a few eggs to finish off the look. Every bird cage needs some birds, so I created a few using some Cricut Cardstock. In my Cricut design space, I hit New Project, Images, and in the search bar, I typed in bird. Several options came up. I selected this bird, and then I clicked Insert Image. which moved it to my design space. I wanted several of these birds, so I hit duplicate. I hit duplicate again. This time I shrunk it because I wanted a variety of sizes. I wanted a total of 3 of the smaller birds and 2 of the larger birds. Once I had my 5 birds, I hit make it, which sorted it onto my mat. I clicked continue, which brought me to my material, and I clicked a medium cardstock, and on the pressure I selected more. I hit my flashing arrow button, which loaded the mat, and then the flashing C button, which began the cutting process. Once the cutting was 100% done, I hit that flashing arrow button, which released my mat, and now I have my birds. And finally, I hit finish on the computer. I punched out these birds really easily. The swirl in the middle was a lovely detail that gives these birds a unique look. I taped some fishing line to the back of the birds, and then I tied the fishing line to the top of the bird cage. I also added a little nest in the bottom with some blue and white speckled eggs. The final touch is to add a tassel garland around the base. I placed my pieces on this large brass tray. I also added a raffia bird's nest and some of those same blue and white speckled pastel eggs for an additional spring touch. I think this vignette is fresh and bright. It's an elegant display that would fit in with any springtime decor. The neutral color scheme keeps these pieces versatile so that they can be used at various times throughout the year. I hope you enjoyed creating these spring home decor pieces with me today, and I hope you got some inspiration. If you're looking for more spring inspiration, I have an entire playlist of spring ideas for you that I will link in my description box. Thank you so much for watching.